A big welcome to day 2 of Between the White Lines Summit. So those that are on, that have joined us, thank you guys. Thank you for joining us this evening. If you were here with us last night, as I said last night, a big thing is get your questions in. You know, it's a great opportunity for you to be asking your questions. We have Dave Fish. If you give them a little wave so they know who you are.
Everybody.
And we have Fernando Segal, and they're both here to take your questions this evening. I hope that you had an opportunity today to listen to both of their talks, which were absolutely fantastic. Two big players in this movement. And to go to you first, Dave, what is this all about? Between the White Lines Summit, what's it about? Where did it start? And where's it going to grow to?
Well, to me, this is all about the people who have always been underrepresented at the table, making decisions. And I think the brilliance of Mark's concept and the contributions that all these people have made is bringing voice to what it's like to be in the experience of tennis itself. I mean, we look at successful companies like Uber and Airbnb, and we wonder why they're so successful. Well, they're really pointing a finger at what is the user's experience like. So rather than looking at tennis through an administrative lens, which is essentially what we will get when we only have a conversation that is run by federations, we need to also bring in the voices from other directions, people like Fernando and people like Mark, people like our system, the Global Tennis Tour, is that those are conversations that don't usually have a podium. And what we're doing with this is trying to open this up so that we hear voices from everybody else as well. And then the good ideas will have more chance to percolate. I've joked a little bit that this is kind of TED Talks for tennis, is that the TED Talks have really revealed a huge mountain of wonderful information that have inspired people over many years, and it brought to light really wonderful initiatives that we would otherwise not know about. And I always feel that we're going to be working hand in hand with the federations down the road, although they may see efforts like this and, well, gee, you guys are trying to control a conversation. No, we're just trying to be at the table with important issues that will make your organization stronger and make it more productive for the world of tennis. And so I would expect research and development wing of tennis worldwide. It's an unofficial status at this point, but it's something we're going to work on.
And is that one of the things? Obviously, global pandemic has caused many problems globally, and we have to acknowledge that. However, is that maybe one of the silver linings of that now even this, that we can come on a Zoom call and we can have lots of people, we can start to access the world, whereas before maybe we didn't think in that remote term. You think the times now with what's happening in the world?
I believe this is, and I've said this for a number of months now, this is a once in a generation time to reboot the design flaws that have plagued tennis, that have caused so many people to leave the game. And as we bring tennis back to a more local developmental level, making it more affordable and fun, we stand a much greater chance of rebuilding what used to function as tennis villages. You know, when we talk about it takes a village to raise a child, well, we were all brought up by older, smarter people that showed us the way of the game. And Emilio Sanchez did a brilliant piece today on belonging, and talked about.
Should be a TED Talk.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I want to cry when I hear it. But that's the kind of passion that individuals like Emilio bring to the sport, and they talk about a sense of belonging. And when you bring tennis back from its centralized administration worldwide and chasing points and players feeling anonymous, you bring it back to that village experience where younger players learn from older players. Just as in education, the Khan Academy is revolutionizing learning. And so we're hoping to revolutionize that experience again by returning it back to its roots, which is essentially local, so that more people can grow up having that experience, getting mentored by older, smarter people, getting better to be players. And then when you take Fernando's piece of building character development, well, that should be part and parcel of every person's tennis experience. because very few of these people will become real champions, but 100% of them can have wonderful contributions to the life skills that tennis gives us.
Yeah,
and we must incorporate that. It can't just be an administrative perspective on building tennis. It's not going to happen. They've tried to build it just, how do we make more tennis players stay with the game? Well, it's a very antiseptic, sterile view. It's individuals that bring people into the game out of their love, and we're helping to operationalize the macro structure within which people have those experiences.
Paul, I'm completely on your side with this, but it's very close to my philosophies. I have a tennis academy in Spain, and Fernando, I have to apologize. I wasn't able to listen to your talk today. I will. It's been a busy day at the academy, but I absolutely love all of your concepts. So for me, if nobody else, tell me about your talk today. What were the main points? What's your passion? What's your real why and burning desire?
Thank you, Daniel. And first of all, I want to say to Mark, thank you for the idea, the concept, and to achieve it, which is no easy. Secondly, in terms of what David said, I completely agree. I think the pandemic time is an opportunity to share a lot of ideas, because the issues, the problems already they were there, and then this is time to bring people who wants to make the contribution to have solutions, and is the window of opportunity for tennis. That's why I think between the white line is the jumping start, and we keep working on that, creating movement, because there is a lot of people who can make the difference in every country, in every city, in every tennis courts. Because the main concept has to be that we cannot have empty tennis courts. We have to figure out how to fill them with some kind of programs and more people. And this is that's why I strongly believe that my two presentations of today, one was about how development program has to be built, in terms of the long-term process, which was my first one. And the second one with Gabe Jaramillo, my part was talking about values, because from my point of view, tennis is the sport of life. It's not only a sport. It's a sport to give you the chance to transform, to educate, to help the families to increase the value on the human being, which is an absolutely a priority in terms how it's today. I think tennis is a transformation game. It's not only about the forehand and the backhand. Even in terms of the knowledge, from my point of view, it doesn't care how much knowledge do you have in terms of tennis. Of course, you need to have it. The thing is how you manage that knowledge. That's why most of the important coaches around the world, probably they are not the best one teaching the forehand or teaching the backhand, but for sure they are the best one to communicate with the players, to negotiate situation, to fill the empty spaces.
Is anyone else having a...
Yeah, well said.
Very well said, Fernando. And so how are we going to do it?
Let me chip in here.
Please.
Wingman. So we have a secret project, which will only be secret now for shared. And Valerie Kondos is part of the secret project. So is Dan. So the North Star is, and exactly what Dave said, is about TED talking the characteristics and values and disciplines and humanity that you learn through tennis. And we haven't done that yet. So you may know that, a lady called Brené Brown not only has made a fortune, but has made a big impact on unpacking one word called vulnerability. Another lady that has escaped me, but Emma had at a festival of education, did the same thing on unpacking scientifically what grit is, how to measure it, how to train for it. So if we can take time between all our experts and unpack and formally train decision-making, adaptability, etc., as a curriculum, and then link that to the tennis court, that would be the new educational system of the future.
Yes, and Mark, to that point, one of the things, there's a wonderful book called The Talent Code.
Oh yeah.
And Coyle, and it was marvelous. But one of the real takeaways from that book, yes, and someone pointed out, it was Carol Dweck from, I believe, from Stanford, who was writing.
Okay,
about,
correct.
Yep.
Thank you very much. See, wisdom everywhere.
But the Talent Code had a wonderful thing. It observed that most of the great performers stuck with the sport at an early time, not because they learned from the best teachers, as Fernando said, but because they learned from people who loved the sport, loved their art, loved teaching the piano or the violin or the tennis. And when someone feels welcome and joined, and goes back to Emilio's talk, when they feel that they belong, they're safe, they can grow, they can make mistakes, you have a person for life. And we've looked too much at tennis as an administrative process. And so we've corporatized it since the tennis boom. We've cut people up into smaller and smaller segments, and we wonder why the experience gets more and more sterile. We go back to Salman Khan with the Khan Academy, which is revolutionizing education worldwide. And he wrote a marvelous book called The One World Schoolhouse. And the One World Schoolhouse is, everybody was there to learn from different ages. The older kids would mentor the younger kids. Adults would mentor the older kids. That's the village that we're talking about regrowing with our local efforts. And when you look around, when you listen to tennis conferences, everybody else, people love to sit there and complain about what their federation doesn't do. And I've always said to people, instead of complaining, let's gather all this energy and put it to a good use, to actually think, what could we do? Because it's always easy to deconstruct things. It's very hard to construct things. And when we take all that antipathy, say, toward federation, everybody's got to complain about something. But how do we actually channel our energies in a positive way and bring in local sponsors and get clubs to work together and build this kind of community back again? And then we have a chance to rebuild the culture of tennis, where people actually used to play by the rules of tennis instead of call for a referee every moment. Referees alone have put a lot of tournaments out of everybody's price range, because we're paying to have a scarecrow sitting there scaring away the crows. We should be able to
say what you mean, Dave.
we should be able to call the lines fairly and work it out. And that's the spirit of tennis. That's what makes it so wonderful, because you're literally working on your character 100 line calls a day. And we have to make that part of.
And another thing which is very important.
That's Fernando.
Go ahead, Fernando. Fernando, were you saying something?
Yeah, another thing which I want to say, that we have to break some myth, which is around. For most of the people, tennis is a high performance sport. In terms, you have to be a high performance professional. Even you are working in mini tennis or for adults on sports science, it doesn't care. It's not the big names of the big players, because high performance, the side of high performance is only 0.001 of tennis. Tennis is more like about participation, about the benefits of the game. That's why we have to create a new message in terms to validate the sport or the value of the sport. I think in terms of, I used to say that we have a philosophical problems in tennis. Because we don't have clearly the philosophical part and the philosophical message that we have to bring over the table. We let the high performance, it's like the big meaning to develop high-level players. It's not like this, because only in terms, there are like 300 million people playing tennis around the world. Tennis is the first one individual sport. In terms of the team sport, well, take it swimming, no? The first is swimming, the second one is football, third one is basketball, fourth one is volleyball, and fifth one around the world is tennis. It's the first individual, if you consider like a game, no? But swimming, you can swim alone. But anyway, the thing is like sport. We are talking about 300 million people around, and you have talking about professional tennis, it's only 14,000. What happened with the rest? We don't talk about it. We don't talk about the benefit. That's why we have to clear our message.
Yeah.
Think like a business first, because if we bring more people to play tennis, we're gonna sell more lessons, more tennis rackets, ball, whatever. We will fix the problem like industry, because some of the coaches and some of the people are not thinking like a big industry around the world. You know, there is, let me give you an example. Not too many countries, they have a tennis industry association like they have in the United States. I can mention more than 50 countries, which are pretty important in tennis. They don't have a tennis industry association.
Wow.
How you can talk about the industry when you don't have in every country, you know, the tennis racket seller, the string seller, the sport guys around the same association working to try to have a better industry. But this is one weakness about the tennis around the world. There is a lot of things to talk about it, no, half an hour. But my concept is we have to switch. Okay, Tennis Canada, they have a tennis industry just 5 years ago. But anyway, in South America, you don't have any country without a tennis industry association, you know. But the same happen in coaching, the same happen in sports science. There is a big gap to work on that.
That is an indictment. I didn't realize that. So is this what we bring to, what we call the Power 7? Because not unnaturally, it seems they are most interested in the top 50 for the Grand Slams, for the Davis Cups, for the Labour Cups, for all those things. Is that what we bring? We bring tennis. Is that true, or am I wrong?
I actually think we bring more, Mark.
Wow, that's enough, Dave.
Because we've watched the Tennis Industry Association function for many, many years. And people said, it doesn't accomplish anything. We keep looking at the charts year after year and watch the game going down. But ball manufacturers are not in the business of innovating how to sell them. They're dependent on us to bring better ideas to the table. And so I'll give you a quick, just a quick story. I learned, and I said it on my talk this morning, is that 10 years ago in the United States, we had 190,000 juniors playing tournament tennis. 10 years later, we have 86,000 playing. And we're losing 40% after they play one tournament. 9 years ago, I introduced the concept of a global rating system and how that global rating system could influence the experience of literally millions of people. Since that time, it became universal tennis. It grew despite the fact that it was not supported by associations. But in those 9 years, how many players have we lost because we didn't have a voice from the private sector to put these ideas out there? And so, and this is not an anti-federation response. This is just, I kind of joke that once in a while, a person needs a heart transplant and they get a heart transplant and then the body rejects what they need to stay alive. And so I think that the ideas that we're bringing up here are actually very vital ideas. And then I'm not trying to take a political stance. I'm just saying that we should all be able to be heard at the table, not just the racket manufacturers and the ball manufacturers and the sneaker manufacturers, but what's actually going to change the experience of people in our sport. And having a common brand, a common way to find a good experience anywhere would be a marvelous thing for tennis worldwide if we had this common pathway that we all understood was easy to do. Chess is very much like this, does a marvelous job of it.
Dan, are you looking at the questions? There's some great questions.
Well, there is, absolutely. I've sat in silence because that's what it deserves. It's been such a great discussion that you guys are having.
So just don't turn BTWL into an association or federation. Otherwise, we're out of here.
But what I do want to do, those that are listening, and I'm sure that you are valuing every word that's said, but we have got some questions coming in. So Bill Patton sent in a question, and he's trying to test my English. He's used a very fancy word. So let's see if we can work this word out. But a question for everyone. So where is the balance between profit and altruistic pursuit? So I believe selfish pursuit. Often coaches are not successful financially. How do we get that balance, Fernando?
Well, I think it's a very, very long answer, no? I have to do it, but anyway, I'm gonna make it short. I think in terms, first of all, I think coaches have to create a development plan, no? Which is a very important concept. I touched it in my presentation because in terms, we have to recognize that we have a business in place. Most of the coaches are thinking more about the technical knowledge of tennis, rather to concept which are, from my point of view, in my presentation, my early presentation, I was talking about the business side and the human being side. Okay, from my point of view, we are in the business to connect people. If you are not so good connecting people, of course, you're gonna lose money. Because in terms, pretty good coaches are very good in communication, are very good creating team environment or very participative environment to bring more people around, you know, and then we teach tennis. First, we have to understand which kind of business we have first. Secondly, you have to develop your own plan. Probably, let me give you another example, which is a big gap what happened in tennis. Most of the clubs around the world, they are using the same system to book the court like 50 years ago. No, one guy is coming with a membership, no, and saying, okay, I want to book the court number 3. And they have to go to the club, put the membership card, and the other guy is doing the same, and they are booking the court. They are not using application. When you understand that the tennis has to be customer-centered, your plan, you need the data, you need information about the customer. That's why 90% of the club right now has to work to make the system to register, to book the court, you know, through application. And then you created a service system, which is the guy on the telephone is making the book of the court, and then you can know, you know, the tendency, you know, the needs, you know, the report, you know. We have in the process that many times we believe ourselves that we did a very good lesson, but most of the time we didn't ask to the customer, how was it? You know, and what happened in all the industry, you have to have a report of the customer to keep learning and improving your service. That's why, in terms of the bill, which is a very good, and I follow some the criteria of the information that he is putting on the networks. It's very important to understand the kind of business that we have, the kind of process that we have, and for sure, you're gonna have earnings, things like this. And because if you are in the old model waiting, that it's only about pouring on the backhand or some kind of things, you are making a bad thinking way, no?
You're done. And on that, I think I'd be shocked if it wasn't, with Tim Bainton's presentation tomorrow, data and tracking and customers would be at the heart of clubs, which would be at the heart of the tennis industry, including coaches.
And talking of Tim, Mark, we have Tim's had a few comments on here. I don't know if they're all questions for us, but he does have a question for you, Dave. if the USPTA and PTR were Fortune 500 companies, would the leadership still be employed?
Oh, Tim,
Come on, diplomat. Somewhere between a yes and a no. Oh, Mr. Fish is all on the razor blade now.
No,
we are trying to keep polite, no?
Yeah.
But should we answer that one in the private message later?
Yeah. Well, you know, every organization can continue to get better. And I think that when you depend on an organization to make you better, I think you're abdicating your personal responsibility to get to be the best coach that you can be. And so I don't think it's fair to blame them as much as these are associations. My mentor at Harvard, Jack Barnaby, was one of the original people that started the USPTA and was the first person to implement standards for coaching. You had to actually get certified. And they couldn't pass it. Nobody would allow the rule to be implemented unless they grandfathered all the existing coaches beforehand, because the existing coaches didn't want to be found out. And so these are groups, these are organizations that have just grown up over time, and they don't necessarily, they're part-time agendas. If you look at Europe, in France, I believe you have to do 2 years of training before you ever get to be on a court with anyone. I think that's a very high level of professionalism there that we can't approach in the United States. You know, our organizations tend to be fighting each other to see who can give the credit, give the degree for the fewest number of hours. And so I think that we can do a much better job, but it's attendant to all of us to get to be better professionals. As a coach, every year I had to say, how do I keep up with my peers? How do I make sure that the product, as Fernando said, the product that I'm giving to people and my team players is the very best I can be? I think that's where it comes down to individual accountability.
Absolutely. Accountability is coming through very loud and clear from you guys, you know, and bringing more accountability into us as tennis coaches and into the industry. I think we're all in agreement that we want more numbers. We want to bring more numbers in. We want the base to be bigger. So we have a question from David Mullins, and David, welcome to the show this evening. On his question, in quite a long way, is how do we get tennis to capture young people? You know, how do we get these young minds into the sport? Last night we had Gregory talking about virtual reality tennis, which was fascinating.
Javier.
And Javier was brilliant again last night. Fernando, how, in your opinion, how do we get people into our sport and then keep them?
Yeah, very good question, Daniel. I think there's a multi-level response. No, there is a lot of things that we can do. First, from my point of view, change the philosophy, which is the place that we are for, like sport, and we keep making more deep that message. You know, I think in terms just a little to make my statement, my opinion about what they said about the organizations. I think organization has to be more open-minded, you know, to bring successful cases, because there are a lot of successful cases around the world, which is you can learn a lot. You know, probably sometimes the big organizations are so close because the guys are taking care of themselves, rather to be more open, to listen new ideas, and to bring more things to the table. You know, going back to the question, I think virtual tennis is one. This understands what Emilio, and I put it in my presentation, understand the needs of the people. The third need of the people is a sense of belonging, you know, sense when you create and you understand that the kids at the age of 13, 14 years, they need to belong because they are on the time of life which are questioning everything, questioning parents, questioning the family, questioning themselves. You have to create more social environment. You have to create team events. You have to, you know what happens in clubs? Usually the team events are for the best players, but you have to create team events for the bad ones, for everyone. You know, it doesn't care if you are a guy playing like this.
Yeah, the incompetence, Javier called them.
Yeah, if you understand the sense of belonging, third needs, fourth needs to be recognized and loved, you put the third shirt of the club and let's play against the bad players of the other club, but you are competing and making a social environment, you know, and that's why that's why I say we are thinking too much on high performance and we forget to make wider the strategies to bring more people and to keep having that people understanding the sequence of life. You know, because high performance rapidly, instantly is saying you can play, 99% you cannot play. You know, and what happened? What happened? That's why in my presentation I say we have to create a sense of development coach. The development coach is the guy able to develop tennis in every stage. It doesn't care if you are mini tennis or high performance. You have to think how to create a wider highway to develop tennis first, to keep having them, because it's like David said, and I present myself too. Well, I published in my book 20 years ago, one of the weaknesses of tennis is the handicap, within the handicaps. 10 years later, David is working about the idea at UTR. But the problems, we have it since 4 years. You know, UTR and David and all the team brings a solution to that. But we have another problems following with that. In terms of the adolescents, there is a lot adolescent needs: environment, team, recognition, and to create a new pathway to them. You know, of course, virtual tennis, game, there is a lot of things to do, but we have to be more innovative and creative about it. No?
Very good, Fernando. I think for me, how it works in my head, I think tennis is obsessed with being coaches are obsessed with being high performance coaches, rather than what we should be is obsessing over being high performing coaches. Yeah. You know, and that's very much how it works in my head. You can work at a high performance level but be low performing. You know, and whereas you can work at a lower level and be very high performing, and everyone wants this certificate and wants to say I'm working with this player to be a high performance coach. I think everyone's getting that wrong.
To that
Dave?
point, if I might add, we have a great presentation from Steve Smith and Andy Fitzel. I believe that's tomorrow. Yeah. On the Great Base Initiative, and Steve is always wonderful. We brought him in to train our instructors at our summer tennis camp 15 years ago or more. And he literally changed the way we taught. We standardized it. We had peer teaching. It was an easy word picture method. Terrific effort. So my hat's off to them. But what Steve always said is if you give a kid a foundation to get to first base, see, that's the kind of coach I am. He said, we have a bunch of people standing trying to be the third base coaches. And so those of you who don't play baseball, third base is the guy that's just telling the guy, go ahead, run home and score a run. And everybody would like to be there at the finish line, but we don't always put our best instructors at the starting blocks. Yeah. And to go back to hockey has one of the greatest retention levels of youth sports. They've also made a determination years ago that they would put their more experienced coaches down with the younger ages because that was the most vulnerable group. We tend to put our high school kids out there on the court and feed Nerf balls and say and make money because we've got a lot of kids on the court. That's not
what
good for the
Bill
kids.
was talking about today, the mistakes people make.
Yeah. And then if I could make one last point is that to get back to this idea of belonging, Wayne Bryan has been a wonderful evangelist for tennis worldwide, despite somewhat irreverent comments occasionally. And he always, basically, he promoted everything and anything about tennis, and he taught the love of it. But his one rule about why his club was so successful was he said, if I could get someone to come out and sweat with us in a pro-am or a clinic, something like that, if they broke a sweat with us, they would come and join the club. And that was that sense of welcoming and belonging. And Bill Patton does the same thing, incidentally. Shout out for Bill, who believes that people are so nervous when they get started. And he's this welcoming, friendly face. And that's 90% of the job, to get a person to feel welcome and comfortable.
Fernando?
Yeah, I think following what David said, tennis is a huge sport to develop self-esteem, to take decisions, to read. But in terms of the global aspect of tennis, we have self-esteem problems. Why? Because it looks like a high-performing coach is more important than the mini tennis coach or a formative phase coach. We have self-esteem problems, and that's why it's very fragmented. Organizations fighting each other, who are the best one. We have a self-esteem problem around, even though the coaches, big egos, talking about others, but it's not the kind of industry, because if you look what happened in other industry or in other professions, they have some protocols and rules to keep doing the profession, respecting each other. And we need to work on that, because we have to resolve our self-esteem problems to trying to develop. You can be the champion of mini tennis. You can be the champion of formative phase. You can be the champion to work with the parents. It doesn't care which is the area. You have to, it's like you say, Daniel, you have to be a high performance in every stage, but high performance is about the development process first, and which is very important, it's always to be loved, to have passion. Many years ago, I was in a congress in the United States, and one of the guys was asking what happened against pickleball or platform, or paddle, they are growing a lot, and tennis is decreasing. And it was at a round table, everybody was making an opinion, and when I was my turn, I say, we have to recover the patient. We have to recover our heart. Tennis is too technical, too about the style, the form. It's no, but when you are listening Rafa or you're listening Djokovic, all those guys are talking about what happened in the heart.
Yeah.
We have to recover that like coaches, because kids instantly feel if you love to teach kids, if you love to teach tennis. We have to recover, like in sport, our feelings, our I don't want to say like Spanish words. Okay.
Cool.
Fernando, amazing. Mark?
Well, it's just a perfect segue. So Dan, ask me about self-esteem and a confession I need to make.
What, do you have anything on self-esteem or any confessions, Mark, that you'd like to share with us this evening?
Yes, because nobody knows. So Nick Saw so we've had amazing speakers today, and we've got extraordinary people tomorrow. Tomorrow is the day of huge opportunity. We haven't already had it. And we need to talk about who's speaking tomorrow. So we had Nick Saw on earlier today. Nick Saw, who's he? If anybody was here, just put in the chat box you're here. So he's the Senior Sports Director of the United Nations of High Commission for Refugees. Okay? He was the man that reached out to the International Olympic Committee and put together the very first ever refugees team for the Olympics, and was talking about, obviously, how sport is massive for self-esteem for refugees who have their self-esteem battered. And he had a phrase that was, say, with the Olympics and everything that encouraged participation and the drive towards high performance, for the first time, instead of running away from something, they were running towards something. And he threw out a challenge, which is where my confession comes, on the private sector, between the white lines. And he said, I have a challenge for you. It's not all about football. How can we bring tennis into refugees? And I have a challenge, which is, can you work with us to find a refugee tennis player for 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles? So obviously I said yes, but there was no consultation with my extraordinary, or the extraordinary leadership council and our speakers. So we are down to do a participation with Mark Bullock, who's already doing pop-up tennis camps in refugees, and doing the performing all the way along the line, and then find a few people that would go to academies and select one to be the refugee team. So I hope Dave and Fernando forgive me.
They've got our scholarship. I've told you that already, Mark. There's scholarship waiting at Soto Tennis Academy for them.
Awesome. Well, how great for us to do that.
Amazing.
I couldn't say no, like, obviously, like the challenge is down. You've got to pick the challenge up.
We have one more question. I'm conscious of the time, guys. It's a chat I'd love to take up another time. I've loved it. I've loved talking to you guys, Dave, Fernando. You've been absolutely fantastic. And I would love to sit around a table sometime in the near future or sit around a Zoom call. We have one more question before we want to talk about what's coming tomorrow. We also have a problem with parents pushing their kids to play at a higher level and to focus on tennis results rather than self-esteem, health, fitness, friendship. How do we better educate parents to focus on the lifelong participation rather than high performance results? Dave.
Well, it's a brilliant question. In my coaching career, the first thing I learned about parents was that I needed to get them on my side. I needed to have a coaching philosophy so that when I brought someone into my program, the parents already were supportive of that. I couldn't wait until they were upset about the way I was treating their son or not playing their son at a certain spot in the lineup. So we always have to look at parents as partners. Parents are the second coaches. And so it's up to us to be educating them on the important values, just as Fernando was talking about. And parents are doing it. I sort of joke that being a parent is like assembling that Christmas toy at 2 a.m. And by the time you finally figure out how to do it, you don't have to assemble another one. But you could do it better if you did it the second time around. And parenting is like that. We don't get any training for it. And so coaches have a very important role in setting the standards and the goals for parents and being firm in that, because parents will get obsessive about different things that are not, they tend to major in the minors, as we say. And so I think that a coach has to really involve the parents right away in the program and say, here are the expectations. Here's what I expect your son or your daughter to do. And if you buy into these principles, I'd love to have your player in my program. If you don't, I don't believe that's in the best interest of growing a healthy young adult. And when parents hear that you're talking long-term best interests, and you're working with them to further the hard work that they've done to bring their kids up, they tend to feel much more loyal and responsible to you.
Very good answer, Dave. It's a very good answer. There's if you don't mind me quickly sharing one thing, one of my concepts that I use, one of my frameworks, I call it Watch Your Code. And it fits, in my opinion, for developing players, but also developing parents. And the C stands for connect, and our ability to connect at all levels, connect with purposes, connect with stories, values, beliefs. And then from there, the O is order. So if it's a tennis player, giving them order to their game, order to their mind, order to their life. But with a parent, that would be giving them order to how to be a tennis parent. Once we've connected, we have a chance to do that. The D is then to develop those areas, whatever areas then need to develop. And in my opinion, a lot of tennis coaches go to the D too early, rather than actually let's get the connections. And for me, it's exactly the same with parents. If we connect on a human level with parents and we realize they're human beings, we're human beings, we have the best interest for their child just as they do, and we find that common ground, exactly what you're saying, Dave, the common values, the expectations, all of these areas, then we have a chance, I think, to really work well with parents. Some won't fit into that model, but it helps keep a nice order and framework to it. Yeah. Tomorrow, Mark, so we move into day 3. It must feel like day 43 for you. It's been these days are going on and on and on and on. But what
a treat!
Content. Absolutely, it's incredible. So what do we have to look forward to tomorrow?
We got you, Dan, tomorrow.
Oh God, yeah. I better get planning for that.
Time to go to work, Dan.
Right. So if days 1 and 2 haven't been enough opportunity, which they have, like we are in a world of abundance now. I think the veil is off. But day 3 is definitely about opportunity. So apart from in the club sector with Tim and Scott, they'll be talking about how to have more profitable clubs, more sustaining members. Fernando spoke earlier about brand. We have Ramon Oza talking about how to get what's out of your brain into a brand, how to market it and sell it, bottle it, and some other wonderful speakers in tennis. But I want to just draw attention to abundance of opportunity. First of all, we have Sam Jolla, who is the opening keynote speaker on the 3rd day. And if you don't know Sam, in his teenagers, he could have been a boy soldier in Sierra Leone against Nigeria, but no, he discovered tennis. And his dad, when he came back, like, what's that? That's a tennis racket. Show me your hands. This is a white man's sport, Sam. I cut your hands off. And then about a year later, he got $250 from his federation, came back to his dad, gave him $50, which was a year's salary. Where do you get that from, son? Did you steal it? No, I'm a national tennis player. So he wrote a book, as you probably know, that said, Tennis Saved My Life. And as a TED talker and as a coach on the tour. So amazing thing.
Incredible story. It's an incredible story.
Tennis saved my life.
Yeah.
Okay, well, surely you can talk about something better than that. So that's extraordinary. On the bookends of the day, again, another fantastic introduction from Dave Fish is Art Carrington, 73-year-old. And when I talked to him, his casual throwaway line, which I seized upon later, which is that when I started playing tennis, I thought it was a black man's sport because that's all I played with. And he wanted to talk about something else. I went, no. You're going to close the show on the 3rd day and you're going to talk about how tennis can be a black man's sport, Art. And in addition to that, just get across your boundaries, regardless of ethnicity and race and creed and gender and all the other things. You're going to talk about that as well. I Am Tennis closes the show. Amazing abundance of opportunity. If that all is not enough, and I'm getting excited because it's huge, Shekhar Menon, a top leading respected coach in India. He and his band of brothers are going to talk about how tennis can become the #2 sport in India with 1.4 billion people. And I think there are only 150,000 tennis players now. Massive opportunity for everybody that can contribute outside India to be working to help that. And then we have Timaramu, that's put together the African Tennis Network with 10 countries in Africa, taking it from a hobby recreational sport throughout Africa to a recognized sport. So at least 10 countries in Africa, 1.4 billion people in India, black man's sport, tennis. It's a day of opportunity. And we have Dan.
Hey.
And we have 2 minutes left, guys. I believe in this last 2 minutes, I'm going to give you all 30 seconds each. The summit ends tomorrow. Is that it? Is that it? It ends. We don't talk again. Nothing happens. Or where does this go next? Starting with Fernando, 30 seconds. Where does this go next?
I think we have to keep having, this kind of projects and conversation. We have to be open-minded and keep working to have a better tennis.
Fantastic. That was 15. You're a star. Dave, you get 45 now.
Great. So I see this as just the beginning right now, is that I see these kind of conferences drilling down into the needs of different countries, different regions, so that they can really discuss the idiosyncrasies of what it would be like to develop tennis in India or in Australia or in Scandinavia, because everybody's a little bit different. And I see that these, essentially the TED Talks, the BTWL, is something that begins to be a force out there working year round, bringing these sessions periodically and perhaps even talking about very specific conference titles, such as competition, such as inclusion, so that they become mini topics that we can coalesce 5 or 6 topics around. So it's not a 3-day giant conference, but it's a mini conference that people can pull time out of their busy days and plug into and get that little bit of boost that kind of brings a little bit more bounce to their step in what they're doing professionally, and gets them a little bit sort of back on track for what they really want to, the difference that they want to make in the world with their contributions.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Fernando.
Daniel, one
Fernando?
thing more to say.
Yes.
15 seconds.
Have your 15 seconds back.
You took it.
Yeah.
Remember that well, I didn't take my 45 seconds.
No, but Dave took yours.
It's back to you. Back to you, Fernando. It's going to be worth listening to.
It's a concept. It's a remember to all the guys that we have a common language, common international language, which is tennis. We have to speak tennis in terms of the meanings and which kind of sport we want to develop. You know, this is a common language, and then how we're gonna implement it. This is a very thing, but always remember we have on the same industry, in the same sport, representing everyone.
Absolutely.
Here.
Top, fantastic. A massive thank you to you, Mark. I'm going to give you the final word of this evening. I'm not with you tomorrow evening for this. I've been sacked. I've been sacked for somebody else. So I'm
Mr.
going
Patton and Liz, Bill and Liz are taking it tomorrow.
They deserve it. They deserve it. But it's been a pleasure. But Mark, your 20 seconds to finish off this evening. Thank you to everybody who's joined. You guys have been brilliant. Bill, I hope you perform tomorrow night because I want my job back next year. Over to you, Mark.
Okay. So this is the Trojan Horse now. When we started, it was just going to be it, but it is just the Trojan Horse. We have 3 major initiatives to launch at the end of the show. One is some big ideas like Dave's that can be used all over the world for people to get involved, create more jobs, create more tennis. So there are a few big ideas. Then there are other people that have solved a problem that many other people we've met just have the problem. So we'll be transferring success horizontally across the world. And then we need to lay down the gauntlet with the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. We all will be there behind the chosen person. How good.
Fantastic.
So, not bad in a few months.
Brilliant.
Seriously,
Well,
for entrepreneurs, in a few months from nothing, blank sheet of paper, nobody, nothing, we have all created this. It's a big applause to everybody.
Thank you, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. Everyone who's joined, I'm sure you've enjoyed that. It was a great chat. Thank you. Good evening. Good afternoon. Dave, enjoy your game of tennis this afternoon.
Thank you, Dan, for your good work. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.